This episode is brought to you by Ursa Minor Outfitters. Folks, I'm absolutely in love with my loon mug. It's handmade, it's an absolute piece of art. Whether it's at the office or at the house, people keep asking to check it out. If you're not a loon fan, they also have other beautiful mugs for wildlife fans of moose, bears, and eagles. They specialize in products highlighting the outdoors and local pride through quality design by local artists. They've even started expanding into items beyond mugs, like apparel, dog accessories, and soon candles and more. They also try to partner and highlight other small businesses, and in some cases, forego profits in lieu of charitable giving to help their community, such as the dog rescue. So check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. And for our four-legged hiking partners, they also have a portable silicone dog bowl and also a sweet over-the-collar dog bandana. Go check them out, UrsaMinorOutfitters.com, and don't forget to enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% off your order. Welcome, everyone, to the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I'm your host, Ivan, and together we'll embark on a weekly journey connecting with extraordinary hikers from all corners of the U.S. and beyond. Throughout these spring months, we've had the privilege of conversing with remarkable individuals. Their experiences and adventures will leave you yearning to hit the trails. In this week's episode, we're heading back down to Austin, Texas, to speak with an incredible hiker and traveler. He's one half of the Hop the Earth team, and his name is Jonathan. You can follow him and his wife, Jessica, as they travel the globe on Instagram at Hop the Earth, with periods in between each word. Jonathan shares about their outdoor experiences in and around Texas, some of his favorite places in Hawaii, and their incredible trips in Europe, including stops in Italy and Switzerland. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode with our guest, Jonathan. Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode of the Hikes and Mikes podcast. I have a really exciting guest with me today. His name is Jonathan, and he's done some amazing travels with his wife all across the United States, as well as across the pond in Europe and other locations. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. For our listeners who haven't had a chance to follow your journey, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Ivan, for having me on. My wife, Jessica, and I, we've been traveling together since 2017. Our first journey together was to Italy. The very next year, we went to Hawaii and visited Oahu and Kauai. Since then, we've done, a couple trips to Europe, and, it's just been a great adventure. And I would say we definitely love prioritizing the outdoors and hiking trails and camping more so than kind of getting bogged down in the tourist traps.
Yeah, for sure. And your feed is just full of amazing landscapes from all your different travels across the globe. And please check out Jonathan and Jessica's Instagram to see some of those highlights. Jonathan, we are a hiking podcast. So one of the first questions we always like to ask our guests is how long they've been hiking for and how they got started.
So I've been hiking probably since I was 8 or 9 years old. I was born and raised in Louisiana, and I remember my dad taking me to places like Tunica Hills, which is, about an hour and a half north of Baton Rouge, pretty close to the Mississippi state line. Just very dense forest, some streams and small waterfalls. I spent some time in Colorado, 2010, 2011. I was actually stationed in Hawaii when I was in the Marine Corps in the early 2000s. So did a lot of hiking and, camping, a little bit of rock climbing out there as well. I've had some periods where I did not do much in the way of hiking. So I would say from 2006 to 2012, I didn't really do too much. But, I think we're now at a phase in our lives where we're trying to experience as much as that as we can, because I just turned 40 this year. So, how many more years do I have left of health and wellness? I don't know. So, but I want to try to take as much time as I can to experience the outdoors.
That's another great thing about your guys' feed is it's just chock full of different outdoor experiences that you both have had on your travels. And how would you describe the hiking scene in and around your local neck of the woods?
So we are now living in Austin, Texas, or just outside of Austin. And, Austin is actually a very beautiful area. I mean, it's not the Rocky Mountains or the Pacific Northwest, but it's kind of in a transitionary zone between kind of East Texas, where it's very wet and humid, more green, and West Texas, which is very dry. dry and kind of deserty. So it's kind of that transition zone, kind of a Goldilocks, I guess. But, we in Austin, the Colorado River is dammed up and it's formed a large water reservoir, which is called Lady Bird Lake. Some call it Town Lake. It was actually renamed Lady Bird Lake after the former First Lady about maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And there's just a lot of beautiful, just walking trails and nature trails that go along the river. If you're walking along the south side of the river or Town Lake, you got a nice view of the Austin skyline, which has expanded a great deal in the last several years. Just maybe an hour and a half outside of Austin, you have a town called Fredericksburg, which is an old German town that there's a lot of wineries and just, old, German buildings and houses around there. And just outside of that is a pretty cool hiking destination called Enchanted Rock. It's just a large granite dome that just kind of comes out of nowhere, out of the ground. And it looks like it's fairly easy to climb whenever you first walk up to it, but you get about halfway up it and you realize that that it's a lot steeper grade than you ever thought, and so it can definitely wear your legs out. But yeah, Central Texas has a lot of great hiking destinations, and if you go a little further, well, actually a lot further West Texas, Big Bend National Park is also another great hiking destination. I've only been there once, and it was only for a few days, and I went there whenever our kids were still pretty small, so we couldn't do a lot of the things we really wanted to do. We had to keep it kind of simple and easy for them. But even then, it was just a beautiful place, especially about this time of year, April. You have all of the wildflowers like the Texas bluebonnets that are just blooming everywhere. The cactuses are in full bloom. It's really probably the best time of year to go. So if anybody listening is in or around Texas this time of year, it's a great time to go visit Big Bend National Park.
Yeah, I think you have a blog post about how right now is the perfect time to visit Big Bend. One thing, I've only been to Texas a few times, and, you look at it on a map and it's big, but traveling across Texas, that's when you really know how big that state is. From Austin, How far of a drive is it to reach Big Bend National Park?
I want to say I think it's about 7 hours to get to Big Bend from Austin. Yeah, it's a very long and boring drive. There's a lot of just flat, open, just desert land going out that direction. So between Austin and El Paso and, Lubbock and all those West Texas places, it's just flat and dry. But once you get to Big Bend, it's a very, very beautiful area. In my opinion, there's a lot of national parks that we have not been to. Mm-hmm. But we've been to several, especially on the western half of the U.S. And honestly, I think Big Bend is one of the, perhaps in our experience, maybe the most underrated national park out there that we've been to. Because when you think of Texas, you don't really think of Texas having mountains. But Texas does have mountains, but they're not the Rocky Mountains, but they're quite beautiful and dramatic. And where the Rio Grande cuts through, I'm trying to think of the name of the trail that we went on. It's either the Santa Elena Canyon Trail or the Boquilla Canyon Trail, and it goes right along the Rio Grande. You would think you were in the Grand Canyon, just kind of standing at the base of the river on the shore, just looking down this canyon. I don't think we have a picture on Instagram. I guess I should maybe put one up there, but it's a very, very beautiful spot to be.
It's definitely on my bucket list. My goal would be to knock out both Carlsbad Cavern and Big Bend National Park on trip.
Yeah, I agree. Another great thing about Big Bend is it's very dark at night. So it's also usually very clear. It's obviously dry, so there's usually not very many rain clouds or just any clouds in the sky, period. So the skies are usually very clear and it's always dark at night. There's very little light pollution. So for anybody who's into astrophotography or you just want to go out and experience what a true night sky looks like, I think, Big Bend is a perfect place to do that.
Jonathan, you mentioned it already. Another great place that's a little bit closer to Austin is Enchanted Rock State Natural Area. And the pictures that you've posted and from, the pictures I've researched online, it is really a geologically interesting and unique place because it's not something I would think of being in Texas, but the trail systems there just look like it's a fun experience for for all types of levels, from, beginners to folks that want to get into a little bit of rock scrambling, maybe even bouldering.
Yeah, there's probably 5 or 6 different trails there. The main trail is called the Loop Trail. It's about a 5-mile trail that just basically goes around the entire Enchanted Rock Park. It's a great trail for kids. Is pretty easy as long as I can handle the distance. You have the Summit Trail, which is a pretty short trail, maybe 1.5 miles to get to the top. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a little deceiving whenever you're on the ground looking up at it because it looks easy, but it's harder than it looks. But once you get up there, it's very rewarding, the views you get from the top. And then there's the Echo Canyon Trail, which is my personal favorite trail because Enchanted Rock is actually two kind of boulders, large granite batholiths that come out of the ground. Enchanted Rock is the main one, but then there's, I think it's called the Little Mountain, or the Little Rock, I think is what it's called, that is off on the other side. And so the Echo Canyon Trail goes down between those two large granite formations. So that's where you kind of get more of the bouldering experience, but it's not too bad as far as it's not technical. My 8 and 9-year-old daughters were able to do it just fine, but it's a pretty cool spot to be, especially in the evening when the sun's going down, because you get definitely a lot of shade, a lot of shadow cast from one side to the other. But the sunsets, I think, are my favorite part of Enchanted Rock. In fact, I don't know if you're aware, but on April 8th, that's whenever the solar eclipse is happening.
Yeah.
And Enchanted Rock is going to be really at the epicenter of the solar eclipse. So there's going to be a lot of people out there in and around Enchanted Rock and Fredericksburg, because I think they're supposed to get like 4 minutes of a total eclipse of it. So, and I think in Austin, I think we're getting closer to 3 minutes.
Yep.
So it's going to be a sight to see.
Oh, for sure. I'm heading over to the East Coast just to try my luck to see if I can catch it in the Northeast. But Texas was definitely on my radar for the solar eclipse. But I think the airlines knew that people were going to want to travel. So it ended up being pretty cheap to go to Maine. So that's where we're going to try our luck.
I think, didn't it pass through the Pacific Northwest in, was it 2018?
Yeah, through a section of Oregon. And I was in Hawaii at that time. We got like a maybe 25% eclipse. We ended up going to Cocoa Head. And trying to catch it there.
Of all times to not be in Hawaii.
But definitely want to try to capture this one, because I think it's going to be a while until the next solar eclipse passes through the United States again.
Yeah, it's definitely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Now, Jonathan, you've had some really great travel experiences, not just here in the States, but abroad. How did the love for travel kind of come about? Was there a specific trip that kind of made you fall in love with traveling?
I mean, so I've always loved traveling really my whole life. And so has Jessica. As a kid, I remember I took many trips to Colorado. My older brother lived in the Denver area for 3 or 4 years. So we were always going up there with my parents a couple of times a year, going into the Rockies. And ever since then, mountains have always, anywhere where there's mountains, that's where I want to be. I would say that love of travel continued on during my time, in the military, traveling around to several places in the world. But I guess more recently, my love of travel kind of got reignited in 2007 when I met Jessica, because as one of the first things we realized about each other was how much we each loved to travel and how much we had traveled in the past. And so we decided pretty early on, with that first trip to Italy in 2017, that we were going to try to make travel a priority. And we write about it, we blog about it, but that's not how it originally started. That's really a more recent development. The first few trips we took together was just, we don't really have a lot of great photography and pictures. Sometimes people, comment, like about our photos. It's like, well, because now we try because we have to get good photos. But early on, that first trip to Italy and some of those early trips to Hawaii, the photography was not very good and kind of non-existent. But hey, we were traveling. That's what mattered.
We've been talking about it. You were stationed there on Oahu at Marine Corps Base Kaneohe. One place that comes up on your feed a lot is your time spent on Kauai.
Yeah.
Can you share some of the experience that you had on the islands and some of the memorable hikes that both of you did?
So Kauai, we did, I think, 1 week in Kauai in 2018. And I'm really embarrassed to say this, but during my entire time actually living in Hawaii in the early and mid 2000s, I never went to Kauai. And after going for the first time in 2018, I was really mad at myself because I'm like, I lived here. I lived in these islands for like 4 years and I never came here and I missed out on so much. So we want to go back again one day. But with Kauai, I think our favorite hike was along the Kalelau Trail to the Hanakapia Falls, which I think is about an 8 mile, is a 4 mile out and back, so total 8 miles. And it was, definitely the most beautiful, coastal trail I've ever been on. I mean, I've never, hiked anything in the Pacific Northwest along the Oregon or Washington coastline. I've seen photos. It's beautiful. So I don't have a lot of experience doing coastal hikes, but, anything along the Nepali coast in Kauai, I mean, that's really hard to beat. It's almost spiritual in a way, whenever you experience that, just walking. And I remember that day, it was kind of off and on rain because I think we were there in March of 2018. And of course, March is, you're kind of coming out of that rainy season in Hawaii.
Yeah.
So the weather's a little iffy. But to me, I think the rain kind of off and on really added to the drama because you had, these mountains just kind of soaring up into the clouds. But then the winds would come and blow the clouds away. So it'd clear up. You had this beautiful sun and just hitting the water, just the blue waters down below you, and then turning inwards towards the falls. Once you get there, I think it's a 300-foot waterfall that just, comes down, and it's quite chilly, whenever you're close to that waterfall. You wouldn't think, I never thought I'd get cold in Hawaii, but we got pretty cold next to that waterfall. But yeah, it was just an amazing hike. It was very muddy. It wasn't easy with the rain, but it was definitely worth it.
Yeah, and the Nepali coast is truly unrivaled in the world, I think. For me, the Nepali coast is one of the most stunning places I've ever seen in my life. And you got two different perspectives because not only did you hike a portion of it, but you also went out on a boat and got to see it from the ocean.
Yeah.
How was that experience?
It was just as beautiful of an experience, a lot easier because you're just on a boat, sipping on wine and getting fed. But I would say if you are not able to hike the trail, definitely take a boat tour and go see it. Like if you go to Kauai and you don't see the Nepali coastline, that's like going to France or to Paris and not seeing the Eiffel Tower. Like that's what you go there for. So I would encourage anybody, even if you can't hike, like the entire Kalelau Trail, I believe it's 11 miles and it's out and back as well. So it's a total of 22 miles, which requires, it's really a 2-day hike. Mm-hmm. But even if you can only do the first 1 or 2 miles, even that alone is a stunning view. So if you're, worried about, your physical limitations or whatever, like you don't need to do, but the first 1 or 2 miles to capture some amazing views of that coastline.
Couldn't agree with you more with that statement. And whether you're hiking or even some of the boat tours, you'll be able to access some beaches that you wouldn't have any other way of accessing besides boat or hiking in. Now, you've also, went back to Oahu, and I know that you guys have done some snorkeling and diving on both islands, but I think Jessica got to swim with dolphins there on Oahu as well, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we both did. And that was one of her, I guess, kind of dream kind of moments to come true, because as a kid, she always dreamed of being like a marine biologist and working with dolphins. And so whenever she saw that there was an opportunity to go out on a dolphin tour, she jumped on it. And I was a little skeptical because this was like going out with dolphins in the wild. This is not a kind of an indoor experience like at SeaWorld or something. And you go out there and, these tour guides, I mean, they know the waters, they know the dolphins, and they were able to find them. And you just go out to the spot and they just, wait. And sure enough, I mean, we had probably a dolphin pod of maybe 20 or so dolphins just came right by us. They don't come up to you and interact with you, but they swim very, very close to you. And so that was just a really neat experience to have dolphins in the wild just literally swim right past you.
You guys have had some amazing trips across Europe, and you really got a chance to explore the beautiful country of Italy. You've done some hiking there, you visited some hot springs, and you really showed that Italy has a great outdoor scene. Can you share a little bit about your experiences and some of the trails that you did in and around Italy?
Yeah, Italy has some of the most beautiful landscape I've seen. When you think of Italy, of course, you think of Rome and Florence and these iconic cities. But I would encourage people to try to get outside of those places if you can and see some of the natural beauty. We were just most recently on the Amalfi Coast or actually in Positano, and just where that town is located along the cliffs going down to the Mediterranean. It's just a beautiful, dramatic little town. But if you get outside of it just a little bit, there's some great hiking trails. And the one that we went on it's a pretty well-known trail. It's called the Path of the Gods, and it extends from the town of Bamarano to Positano. And it's about a 4 to 4.5 mile hike between the two towns. Most people will catch a bus, to Bamarano and then hike down into Positano. We were actually staying in the town of Nocella, which is a little tiny hamlet that sits kind of above Positano. And we didn't feel like going down into Positano and catching a bus and just a lot of logistics to do that. So we're like, let's just go hike to Bamarano and we'll just come back. So for us, it was like an 8 mile hike, but it was really worth it. And I would say if you can do it that way, I would recommend it, because you get, even though it's an out and back hike, you're getting two different viewpoints of the Mediterranean coastline, because going to Bamarano, you're looking that direction, and then coming back, you're looking the other direction. But it was the hike back from Bamarano that was the most impressive, because it was kind of the golden light hours of the day, by 4, 5, 6 p.m. and just the sun going down, just the perfect lighting, just really made for some great photography opportunities. But overall, that was a fairly easy trail. There are some areas where there's some exposure. I do believe there was a young lady that lost her life, I think about a year and a half ago. But if you're safe and use common sense, it's a very safe hike. A lot of people do it. There's kids on the trail with their parents, so if you're responsible, it should be a very safe hike.
One thing I've noticed going through your feed is that water is definitely a common theme throughout a lot of your posts. And, we've talked about Hawaii and your experiences there. Did you have any water activities or experiences there in Italy?
Other than, the hike, the Path of the Gods hike, that was the main one. Now, this goes back to 2017. We were in Cinque Terre, which is 5 little towns along the Mediterranean on the west side of Italy. And most people opt to take, the train between all 5 towns, but you can actually hike between all 5 towns. Now, we didn't do all 5 towns because that's quite a distance, but we did hike between a couple of those towns. I think it was in Vernazza, I believe, was one of the 2 towns we hiked between. But that is also along, kind of perched up high along the Mediterranean. So that's probably the only other water experience that we hiked.
One other great place there in Europe that Jessica got a chance to visit, and it's been on my bucket list for a few years now because it has some really amazing lakes and mountain towns, and that's the country of Austria. Can you share a little bit about Jessica's experience hiking and visiting and exploring Austria?
Sure. So I was not in Austria with her. She actually had an opportunity to go last summer and visit a friend who was living in Barcelona. And so they took kind of a long weekend together and went to Hallstatt, which has become a very popular destination in Austria. It's just a very pretty, beautiful, quaint little town that sits right along the banks of Lake Hallstatt. One reason why it's become so popular is whenever Disney made the movie Frozen, they used Hallstatt as kind of a model, for, I think the town's called Arendelle in the movie. Yeah. But Hallstatt was, I think, one of 2 towns they used to kind of model, this fictional town after. So a lot of people travel there to get kind of those iconic photos of Hallstatt. But there are, some hiking trails around Hallstatt that Jessica went on. In fact, the town itself gets pretty crowded with tourists during the day. So what they learned to do is they actually stayed, in Hallstatt, and they would wake up early in the morning morning, and before the tourist all came, bustling in, they would get up early and enjoy breakfast and coffee with a peaceful morning atmosphere. But once the buses and the boats started coming in with the tourists, they would get out of Dodge and go and hike some trails. I think there's a town called Salzburg that sits, I think it's kind of perched up above Hallstatt. I think there's like an old salt mine there. There's like a lookout and stuff and a restaurant up there. So they would, go up there as well. But she got some beautiful photos of some great little trails and stuff around Hallstatt. You can also rent kayaks and go and kayak on the lake. And so they would kind of escape the town and the tourists, whenever during the daylight hours, and then come back later in the evening whenever all that had died down. But yeah, they had a fantastic time there. And I wish she was here with me today to talk about it, but she is actually in Dallas today, so she's out of town.
One segment that we like to do here on the podcast where we kind of do a deep dive into our guests' Instagram and ask them about a post that captured our attention. And yours was actually an incredible video that you have posted there on YouTube, showcasing the beautiful sights you got to witness while hiking in Switzerland. The video is epic. If folks that are listening, it's on your link in your bio for folks to check out. And I feel like Switzerland is one of those places where, it looks incredible in your video and in pictures, but then actually seeing it in person just takes it up a notch. How was your experience hiking around Switzerland, and what are some of your more memorable experiences?
I would say Switzerland is probably the most beautiful country that I've been to. And it may be the most beautiful country in the world. I've talked to people who have been to more places in the world, more countries in the world than I've been to. And some of them have said the same thing. Two countries that keep getting brought up for being the most beautiful that I hear a lot from other people that have traveled a lot are Switzerland and Iceland. I have not done Iceland yet, so I can't speak to that. But Switzerland definitely takes the cake for our international travel so far. Just the Swiss Alps are really kind of otherworldly when you're there. They are very dramatic. I would say the Swiss Alps are more dramatic than the American Rockies. Maybe not the Canadian Rockies, but the American Rockies, I would say they're more dramatic. And the reason being is the American Rockies they're about the same height, so both mountain ranges are pretty similar in total height. But the American Rockies, like if you're in Denver, for example, with the foothills, I mean, you're already at a mile high elevation there. So basically the distance from the valley floor to the peaks is less in the American Rockies than it is in Switzerland. So the valley is still a lot lower relative to the peaks in Switzerland. So I think you get a more dramatic, look in Switzerland. But also just the alpine lakes and streams. I mean, on a sunny day, they're just so bright blue, just stunning colors, come off the water in Switzerland. And it's just an amazing place. The climate, the weather, it's just perfect. Not too hot, not too cold. At least when we were there. We were there in September. So it was pretty warm, but not hot. But of course, we're from Texas. So if it's below 100, we're happy.
And no humidity, right?
Right.
Now, Jonathan, how would you describe the trails over there compared to what you've experienced here in the States? So
Switzerland, the whole country is really built for the outdoors. The trails are very well maintained. The transportation systems to get you to different parts of the country and different regions, the gondolas, the cable cars, everything is designed to get you around quickly and efficiently. So you can cover a lot of ground in Switzerland because they have such a well-developed and highly efficient transportation system. And then the trails are just so well maintained, so well marked. Most of them are very, most of the popular trails they're very, very safe, very wide, so it's a great place to take a family, and the people there are, very friendly, very helpful, just a beautiful place to be.
Your pictures, your video, it just shows how amazing Swiss Alps and Switzerland is.
Yeah.
I'm hoping you can kind of share some behind the scenes experiences, because I'm always curious about this. when I'm trying to even just put a reel together, how much
Yeah.
of a video that you have to kind of condense into a reel or a short. How was it capturing all the footage for that video that you have on YouTube? And what was the editing process like?
Yeah, so that was all captured with a DJI Mini 3 Pro drone. And honestly, especially when it came to the drone shots, like I had never operated a drone before. I bought that drone maybe, a couple of months before our trip and got, a few hours of practice with it before we left.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking when I was over there that I wasn't really getting a lot of good shots. And it wasn't until I got back to the States and started looking at everything and trying to doing kind of a basic timeline on a video editing software
Yeah.
that I started to realize, like, well, wait a minute, like we did get some good stuff. I have no background in video editing. It took me a long time to put that video together.
Mhm.
Like a professional probably could have done that in a day. It took me like a month, and it was very much, me YouTubing how to do everything, which, YouTube is great for that.
For
But
sure.
it was, I would say that, if anybody wants to do, any kind of a reel or put together a little short video of their travels, I would definitely encourage you to do it, even if nobody else sees it but you and your family. Like it's a memory that you're capturing, and I would just encourage people to whenever you do travel, especially with cell phones. I mean, they have so much storage capacity. Just try to capture as much as you can, because all you need is, I mean, you can take a 30-second clip, but all you need is like 5 seconds, something beautiful, and you just string a bunch of those together and you can create a really fantastic reel or a fantastic YouTube capture.
Job well done, Jonathan. The video turned out amazing. And yeah, the editing was wonderful. And the music selection was really on point to show how just grand the sights and scenes that you guys were seeing on the trails.
Thank you.
One of the questions we always like to ask our guest is, when it comes to your hikes, whether it's reaching a summit or reaching a turnaround point or a waterfall, some hikers have an end of the hike routine or a summit routine. For many, it's packing their favorite snack and a drink and enjoying it at the summit, or even just a moment of zen. Or for some, it's looking forward to a favorite meal afterwards. Is there a regular custom that you and Jessica like to do when you guys reach your final destination, or maybe when you make it back out?
I think for us, reaching whatever the climax is in the hike, it's just enjoying that, taking some time to just sit and soak it all in. That's what we look the most forward to. Probably second would be the post-hike meal.
Any favorite post-hike meals?
Oh gosh. I mean, certainly Italian food in Italy, that was a big one. Here in Texas, hiking Enchanted Rock and going into Fredericksburg post hike, and there's a couple of good German restaurants there where you can just load up on, some brats and a beer. That's always highly recommended.
And this is a two-parter because I want to ask you if you have a luxury item that you tend to pack in your hiking backpack that might fall outside of the essentials list. And then is there any luxury item that you guys like to pack, whether it's in your carry-on or your checked luggage, that kind of falls out of the essentials list as well?
So a luxury item, I always enjoy a good cigar. So if I'm permitted to, some places you can't, but if I'm allowed to, I like to puff on a cigar. It's not really a luxury item because I don't buy expensive cigars, but that might be one thing.
Okay, because that adds to the pack weight.
Yeah.
And then for your travel luggage, whether it's your carry-on or your check luggage, is there anything that you guys like to pack just for like comfort from home, or just something that maybe you've realized that you'd need?
A luxury item or just anything?
Yeah, luxury item that kind of just falls out of, your regulars of clothes, plugs, chargers, not necessarily luxurious, but just something that, isn't really required, but you like to bring on most of your trips.
I don't really know. We pack pretty thin usually whenever we travel. If anything, I will say whenever we do travel, we always find ourselves kind of getting something kind of local. And we'll splurge a little bit there, so we might come back with some stuff, or kind of along our travels along the way, we'll grab some stuff. I remember in Switzerland, we definitely loaded up on Swiss chocolate, some of these little chocolate shops. So that might count.
Oh, definitely. Now, we're still barely going into the spring season. Do you have any hiking goals for the new year? And do you have any travel goals for the new year as well?
Yeah, I think we do have 2 trips planned planned for May and June. In May, we are going to be going to Telluride, Colorado. So we have, a couple of hikes up there. We're eyeballing. We're not really sure if how extensive the snow is going to be melted away. So there could be some limitations there. Some of these, higher passes are still, snowed in.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be something we play by ear. And then in June, we have a trip to Costa Rica planned. And so, so we'll be in the central part of Costa Rica, just north of the capital. And so we'll be doing, some rainforest, kind of hikes and waterfall hikes, especially. We're definitely looking forward to seeing some gorgeous Costa Rican waterfalls, but we'll be there for a week and try to do all that we can.
Right on. I'm looking forward to seeing your guys' posts from both of those experiences. Jonathan, that was it for the regular questions. This last portion of the podcast is the this or that questions, where we're going to give you 2 hiking related topics and you just choose the one that you prefer out of the 2. So the first one is, do you prefer a steep incline or a steep decline?
Steep incline.
And then this one's a tough one, but waterfalls or summits?
Waterfalls.
When it comes to your trail systems, do you prefer a trail with switchbacks or would you rather go straight up?
Wow. Probably straight up. Get it over with.
I like it. And then do you guys use trek poles or do you prefer being freehand?
I learned in Switzerland to rely on trekking poles. Being, 40 and just getting older, I'm sure that will be more the case in the future, especially going down. Going up, I can do without, but going down, those trekking poles definitely save the knees.
And this one's about your footwear, but do you prefer hiking boots or trail runners?
I prefer trail runners. Jessica prefers hiking boots.
And then this is another trail system question, but do you prefer a loop trail or a trail that's out and back?
Loop trail.
And then when it comes to storing and carrying your water, do you prefer to carry just a traditional water bottle or do you prefer a Camelback or a water reservoir?
A traditional water bottle. Yeah.
And these next 2 are pretty tough. Sunset hikes or sunrise hikes?
Sunset hikes.
Sunset. And then spring flowers or fall colors?
Oh man, another tough one. I'm going to go with fall colors. I love the fall, especially in Texas. I love the fall.
And then the last one is, when it comes to just overall hikes, do you prefer a trail that's long and gradual, or do you prefer one that's short and steep?
Long and gradual.
And that was it for the this or that questions, Jonathan. For folks that want to follow you and Jessica's adventures in 2024 and beyond, where are some of the places they can follow you at online and on social media?
So, we have a website, a travel blog called hoptheearth.com. We are also on Instagram at Hop the Earth. You can find us there, and that's really about it.
We'll be sure to put those links in the episode show notes so people can check them out. And Jonathan, it was awesome talking to you and hearing about not just your adventures, but also Jessica's and some of the hikes that you guys have done together across the world. Appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your experiences.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
And that brings us to the end of this episode alongside Jonathan. We extend a heartfelt thanks to him for coming on the podcast. Make sure to stay connected and follow his and Jessica's upcoming adventures on Instagram at Hop the Earth, periods in between each word. And don't forget to check out the episode show notes to check out their travel blog and more. We have an incredible lineup of episodes planned throughout the spring months, and we can't wait to share them with you. New episodes will be dropping every Monday with occasional bonus episodes on Fridays. To ensure you never miss out on those thrilling tales, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. Your support means the world to us. Don't forget to join our vibrant community on Instagram at Hikes and Mics. We'll be sharing episode visuals, my own personal hiking content, and so much more. Let's stay connected and continue to inspire each other on this remarkable journey. As we bid farewell, remember to tread those happy trails, embrace the great outdoors, and keep the spirit of adventure alive. Until next time, my fellow explorers, happy hiking. This episode's music was created by Ketsa. Follow him on Instagram at Ketsa Music. This episode is brought to you by Flip Socks. Whether you're on the trail, on the job, or in the yard, Flip Socks will keep Mother Nature out of your boots with their innovative nylon sleeve. You no longer need to worry about any annoying debris getting trapped in your boots during your hikes. Simply flip down the nylon sleeve over any boot to prevent Mother Nature from finding its way inside, keeping your feet comfortable all day long. To get your first pair, visit flipsockswithaz.com and enter promo code HikesMikes10 at checkout to receive 10% 10% off your order. And for listeners who use the promo code at checkout, I'll be donating 100% of the Season 2 promo code proceeds to Big City Mountaineers, who provide transformative experiences through connections to nature that strengthen life skills and build community for youth and disinvested communities across the nation. So if you're tired of bits and pieces of the trail finding its way into your hiking boots, pick up a pair of flip socks today with the promo code HikesMikes10 to get 10% off. For website and promo code, see the episode description.